Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well. Today we are going to go over why writers use commas, and we're also going to go over the very first comma rule. So your understanding of the comma rules will depend on your understanding of phrases and clauses, which we went over before spring break. So if you have trouble remembering what an appositive is, what a subordinate clause is, make sure you go over that on your own. So, why writers use commas? Writers use commas for several reasons. One is to indicate mother. Hi, ninth graders. I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to go over why you should use commas when you write, and we're going to go over comma rule number 1. So just look at the example on the screen. Let's eat grandma. I hope that nobody is a cannibal and wants to eat his or her grandma. Notice the addition of the comma after eat. Let's eat, comma, grandma totally changes the meaning of the sentence. That means that whoever's speaking is calling grandma to the dinner table. So commas can really change what you're trying to say when you write. It's important that you use commas correctly so that what you're trying to express is exactly what is expressed. So why writers use commas? In general, it's so that what you're trying to say is expressed. The more specific reasons: number 1, writers use commas to indicate that information in a sentence is optional. Number 2, writers use commas to indicate that the writer has changed the normal sentence order. So instead of using subject verb plus complete thought order, commas indicate that the writer has mixed up that order. Number 3, writers use commas to separate items in a list. And number 4, writers, such as yourself, use commas to connect independent clauses. So, comma rule number 1. Comma rule number 1 is the first comma rule because it has to do with information that comes before an independent clause. And the rule is when you have an introductory element, again, that's any element that comes before an independent clause that requires a comma, use a comma. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there are 8 introductory elements. The acronym you can use to remember the 8 introductory elements is Spain, SPA. I think it would be lovely to be in Spain at a spa right now. So the S will stand for one of the introductory elements, the P for another introductory element, the A, etc. We are not going in that exact order. So number 1, introductory prepositional phrases use commas. So look at the example, at midnight, comma. At midnight is an introductory prepositional phrase. You need to use a comma after it to separate it from the independent clause. Look at what comes after at midnight. It is an independent clause. Jake went to the store to buy Cheetos. It has a subject, a verb, and a complete thought. Number 2 is introductory participle phrases. Remember that participles are verbals. That means they're forms of infinitive verbs. An infinitive is a to verb. They usually end in ing or ed. So look at the example. The introductory participle phrase here is finishing his Slurpee. So you need a comma after that introductory element to separate it from the independent clause, Jake smiled with satisfaction. Number 3, speaking of infinitives, when you have an introductory infinitive phrase, you need to use a comma after it. So, for example, to avoid mosquito bites, comma, Jack applied bug spray. You have to put that comma after the introductory infinitive phrase. Number 4, introductory appositives. Remember, if something starts with who, it's not an appositive because it cannot be used interchangeably with something else. A lot of times the introductory appositive will have an appositive right after it that also requires a comma. Look at the example, Justine, comma, the shortest girl in class, comma, won the race. So we have both an introductory appositive and an interrupting appositive. The shortest girl in the class is in the middle of the sentence. Number 5 is introductory noun of direct address. This is what it sounds like. It's when someone is directly addressing someone or something else. For example, Spot, go fetch your bone. That's directly addressing Spot, and it's not the same as a speaker tag, which we'll go over in a minute. Number 6, introductory adverb and transition adverbs take commas. For example, unfortunately, comma, Bobby got the last piece of cake. So remember, transition adverbs are conjunctive adverbs, that's a synonym, and they include words like however, moreover, unfortunately, as it's used here, and requires a comma. Number 7, subordinate clauses. After, although, as, because, before, if, since, that, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, while. Subordinate conjunctions. When you have a subordinate clause and it's introductory, meaning it comes before an independent clause, you use a comma. For example, because I was hungry, comma. So because I was hungry is is a subordinate clause, and it comes before the independent clause, I ate the last piece of cake. And number 8 is an introductory speaker tag. So a speaker tag is when the writer identifies the speaker of a quote. It's not directly addressing a person. So remember, noun of direct address. Hey, Spot, go get your bone. Speaker tag is different. My mother shouted, comma, go do your homework. So a speaker tag will come before a quote. It identifies someone who's speaking a quote. All right, we're going to do some practice. Let me know if you have any questions.